Hi, Hems. Thanks for joining me today. How are you?
I'm very well, Jane. It's a pleasure. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, good. So here we are in a new year. How have the last few months treated you so far?
Well, yeah, it's been quite a few months, hasn't it? I think the first lockdown was probably a lot easier. Well, I'm speaking personally now because I think we are the lucky ones. I think we haven't had to put up with and lose stuff that so many other people have had to put up with. And I'm not a single mum in a small flat on a 10th story in the middle of a town centre. We are the lucky ones, and I think people have had to put up with and are still putting up with an awful lot. I think the first lockdown was relatively easy. You knew where you were, you knew what you could and couldn't do, and we were frightened enough and nervous enough to stick to the rules.
Definitely. And we had weather on our side then,
And we had
didn't
weather
we?
on our side, and I do
Yeah.
remember thinking, well, we're in here for the long haul, and I had a conversation with myself, and I thought, right, the one thing I don't want to do is to look back on all this and feel that I've wasted time, because I thought there was a real danger of doing that. I didn't want to waste time, and I didn't want to waste opportunity. So I decided that I would, and it sounds a bit naff, but I mean, I remember having this conversation that I wanted to learn something new, kind of be a better person, try and do something for other people, but actually keep busy. So I read a lot, I wrote a bit, I got the watercolors out. My desk is surrounded with watercolor paints. I'm not going to show
Good
you
for
anymore
you.
because it's absolute rubbish, but it was about keeping the brain going and trying to, and feeling very lucky that we've in a nice part of the world and we can walk and we have some space and we can do these things, and trying to find a way of, I felt guilty about it, actually. I did actually have some guilt about the fact that we were so cushioned by it in so many ways. So trying to find ways of paying that forward a bit and finding people who weren't having a great time. And I was lucky enough to do some work. I do some work for Chester Uni and a few other unis in the Northwest. But I had a conversation with a couple of students that I work with, and I realized how badly they were being affected. They had signed up for an experience that they'd suddenly had the rug pulled from under their feet. All their plans and holidays and gigs and whatever else had completely been cancelled. They expected a university experience that they were immediately deprived of. And half of them were living in places that they did not expect to be living at, and
I know, it's
sometimes with
so tough.
parents. And it was clearly really an angst-ridden time for them. So spending a bit of time trying to give them a few resilience tools, if that doesn't sound so grand, was a great thing to be able to do, and kind of met a need and assuaged my own guilt a little bit.
Yeah, I certainly don't envy people that are about to embark on a degree, because it's not just about your learning, it's about the whole experience, as you've said, isn't it? And actually, I think you learn more from the life experience than the actual course you do as well. So
absolutely right.
definitely
Yes.
Tough, especially first time moving away from home and then getting locked up and almost feeling guilty for doing the wrong thing. I think that was a big feeling. I mean, a lot of people feeling guilty that you're not doing the right thing, or you're not on the front line helping out. Yeah, definitely a tough time. So just to give an introduction to you a little bit more, Hem. So you ran a PR and digital agency for 28 years, which you successfully exited a few years ago, and you're now offering businesses your services on a more of a consultancy level. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I am, you've heard me say this, and anybody that's listening to this will probably have heard me say it before, but I am the luckiest bloke you know. And a bit like you, we share that good fortune. We've had the opportunity to create a brand and build a team, and create some values and do some astonishing work with some astonishing clients and win a few awards for it. And how lucky are we to have been able to do that? I just think that makes me one of the luckiest people I know, if not the luckiest person I know.
You're being quite modest there. I don't think it's all luck. I think you make your own luck as well.
The trick is, Jane, to surround yourself with people who are better than you.
Definitely.
And try not to have too much of an ego. I think that's the trick. It's, if I'm proud of anything, and I'm not so sure that pride is a great thing, but if I'm proud of anything, I am proud that I managed to keep something going for that long. But I'm painfully aware, with the benefit of hindsight, that it was the people around me and the clients that made the difference and that gave it that sustainability. But it, absolute ball. And I think that having done that for 28 years, I did become, towards the end, last 5 years or so, really passionate about sharing what I'd learned. Maybe that sounds naff as well, but there's that great need to make a difference in a different way. And whilst, I didn't run a government department, and it wasn't a multinational, and I'm not pretending for a moment that it was, but running an SME, I think the most we got to was about 18 people, does throw up all sorts of situations that do give you a bit of experience and maybe do help when you try to help other people. So I decided that I wanted to not do any PR anymore, which I obviously love doing, and I still do a bit of writing, but I didn't want to provide any PR services anymore. I'll leave that to the professionals. But I did want to find business owners, SME owners, that I could perhaps challenge in the way that I had been challenged. The bit I've left out here, and stop me if I'm going on, is that about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I thought I was in a good place. I thought I was happy. I thought I was having a fairly successful life, and everything was going all right. We had clients, and some years I made a few bob, and some years I didn't. But then somebody who I really looked up to said to me one day that he thought it would be a great idea if I met his mentor. And I was really surprised that he should say that to me, because I was surprised that this bloke had a mentor, because I'd put him on a bit of a pedestal. And secondly, I couldn't quite understand why he would think that that was a good thing for me to do, to meet this mentor. Anyway, cutting a long story short, I did meet Alan. In fact, I had a good long conversation with Alan this morning. Alan Mullet, his name was. He came into my life. And as I've said on numerous occasions since, and I think probably mention it in every talk I do, everything that I became and everything that happened to me and everything I'm doing now is a direct result of that half-hour meeting with Alan. And it's that magic of having another human being with no agenda at all come into your life and tell you what he sees and ask you some real questions and making you realize that you'd spent so many years not really performing. I think I'd been performing for everybody. I certainly wasn't being true to myself. It was a performance. It had become a performance, sitting in front of people thinking, right, what can I do or say to make you give me your business? Worrying about where the next contract's coming from, worrying about all your people, lying awake at night for years, thinking there's this niggle in your mind that you think there must be something else. There must be something better than this. There's something not right. It's that niggle that I'm sure a lot of people will identify with. But that becomes your norm. That is your life. So you don't know any better, because you become inward looking, and you just don't know. And then someone comes along and says, there's this and there's that, and why are you feeling that way? And then you start thinking about it, and you kind of draw back a bit, and you take a more objective view of your life, and you realize that that it's not right, and that you need to fix it. And fix it I did. And I know that's maybe a bit dull, but him giving me those skills and those attributes, those skills and that experience, the satisfaction I get from going in and asking those same questions to the people I'm working with, and actually changing lives from time to time. And it sounds a bit grand, but you do.
No,
you just give people a completely new perspective, and you've been the receiving end of a good mentor. So you know what a difference it can make to be challenged in a constructive way.
And I've certainly picked up, tips that you've given me over the years. We've been, I think I remember the very first time we met, I don't know if you'll remember, it was in I'd walked into the post office. I think I was buying a lottery ticket.
Oh, I do.
Yes. And you said, I do believe you're Jane from Entice. I think we're competing for PR space at the moment. And it's funny because I think at that point there's always a bit of a thing with agencies, whereas, oh, everyone's a competitor, and you were so friendly, and then over the years we've got to know each other, and I think you've never held back on advice and guidance. And for me, I think, you know, as I've mentioned, those things have stuck with me because you've been there, you've done a lot of the things at that point that we hadn't yet experienced. So I think on your mentoring side, a lot of it is just through unless you've experienced it, you can't
No.
share that advice. And I
Well,
think
two important things there, Jane. Firstly, did you win on the lottery ticket that you bought that day?
no.
No.
Which, you know what, I've
And
only played the lottery about twice in my life, and every
me
time I
too.
lived like a millionaire for that week. And then yeah.
I think when you and I bumped into each other, I think we were at the tail end of an era when people like you and I would cross the road rather than talk to each other because we were looking at each other as the competition and we were a threat to each other. And one of the great things I think that's changed is that if you look at the networking that's going on and the collaborations that are going on and the stuff
Yes,
we're doing now, that's got to be such a fantastic thing that has changed.
it has.
Yeah, and then that was a great meeting, and I do remember you in the post office that day, and we must have emailed each other. I must have emailed you. I think
You
I must have
did,
emailed you.
yeah. No, yeah, I do remember that, definitely. And then since then we've got to know each other, and you've shared lots of useful
Well, that's
tips.
nice. Good.
So what are the where do you start then if you're working with a business? Do you tend to work with digital PR agencies, or do your skills lend themselves to any business, would you say?
Well, I started working with predominantly creative agencies, and predominantly Manchester, a couple of really big ones in Manchester, which was really, really good fun. Very unnerving, but good fun. And I think one of the things I realized was, may not apply to you, but looking back, it certainly applied to me. And I know it applies to a lot of startups. We have a dream when we start our business, don't we? We have a vision of some kind. We want to create something. It's generally not about making money, but we have a dream. We want to do something for ourselves. We want to create something. We want to change something. Whatever it is that motivates us in that initial starting point is what drives us. But then, of course, what happens is most of the time, a lot of the time, a year or two in, and we become so consumed about mortgages, about contracts, about money, people, offices, rate, whatever it is that exercises us, that actually we forget. We become slightly divorced from that vision and that goal that we had.
Yeah.
And if you take that a bit further, and by then you've got a few people, well, if those people don't have the vision that you've got, if you've not been able to sort of share that and get them on board with it, that is quite difficult. But I've seen that happen quite a lot. So, you know, and as I said, surrounding yourself with people who believe what you believe and who can share that vision, who can sign up to that future and that achievement and be part of it, that is just that's a fantastic sustainable. That's where the sustainability comes in, you know. So going in there and asking those questions, and I've always found it really easy in client meetings and any kind of meetings to pick up on people's vibes. I think I've always found that quite easy to do. I can pick up if people aren't well or upset or there's something not quite right. You can pick that up, can't you?
Definitely,
You
definitely. And
know,
that's something that I think at the moment that we're missing with face-to-face. I think you can pick that up to an extent,
yeah.
but yeah, it definitely face-to-face has got its place, in my opinion, still.
Yeah. So it's that process. It's about asking the questions, and it's about the first thing I do is, you know, I will say to a business owner, what is it you want out of your life? Where do you want to be in so many years' time? And how do you want your business to help you achieve those outcomes? It's not always about the business itself. It's about the person and the owners. And we embark on a I hate that journey word, but we embark on a journey, and it's about empowering people, and it's about showing people how they can be in control more of how they feel, of what they decide to do. You know, our biggest angst comes from that space between where we are and where we think we want to be, and it's when we're not in control of stuff that we become really emotional and anxious about it. And when we're anxious, we're just not rational, and then the emotions take over. But you know, there are great techniques for staying in control of stuff. and for realizing how other people are feeling, and for dealing with challenges and not to be emotionally overawed by them. That's a big thing, and that's a big trick. You know, you and I are both the same. We're pretty good and we're pretty stable most of the time, but I'm sure if we were open and honest with each other, which we are, you will confess to me as I will confess to you that I've had, especially lately, you know, when I am not in control of my own emotions and thoughts, and I have to just stop and look and think, yeah, actually, this is not me. I have drifted on to what I will call the dark side, and I recognize what's going on, and I need to implement some techniques to get me back.
Yeah.
And it's about controlling the little things in your life that enable you to get that control back.
And I think it is, like you say, it's almost like a bit of a consistently making small changes rather than necessarily thinking, right, I'm going to make this big change and everything's going to be for the better. I think it's like people going on diets in that respect, isn't it? It's about changing just little things, but consistently and following that. And sometimes you can have the best will in the world, but without an external person to almost keep you on track or to report back into. And I think that's one of the things that I know Libby and I running a business have sort of found. There's nobody above us to go to for that advice, to challenge us, to where do you go? Who do you ask? So for us, definitely having a mentor, a coach. And I think when you look at anyone in any elite kind of performance, they have somebody guiding them, coaching them.
And you're right, you know, you're quite right. It really is important, but there's always a danger that we get caught up in jargon about what's a mentor and what's a coach and all the rest of it. You know what? It really is. And it's not just about business people. It's not just about business owners. It's about having someone who cares enough and who's prepared to be honest enough to have your own best interests at heart, and to ask you some awkward questions and to hold you to account. What we don't have, Jane, is we don't have anybody to hold us to account. And it's not about husbands, wives and families. It is that narrow bit of how's biz, you know, are you hiding from anything? Are you doing the right thing? How is that client feeling? What are you taking for granted? It's just those things to be asked in a direct but really open way. It's having a good mate. You know, we've all got good mates, haven't we? And they do what we call it mentoring, or we call it coaching. There's far too much jargon around. Just having someone on board once a month to sit you down and to hold you to account. And that's the thing that so many business owners of whatever level are missing, I think.
Especially somebody who's been there and has actually experienced the problems that people are going through, but has probably at the time been too close to them to see it as clearly. And I think sometimes somebody on the outside can absolutely see that perhaps what you're worrying about or what you're concerned about isn't perhaps as big a deal as you think. And for me, it's also making sure that you're constantly having fun, because that's what you set out in business to do, especially in a creative industry. You know, it's got to be enjoyable as well. And I think if that starts to go, then why are you in it anymore? So I think by having the conversations, getting the stress out of the way, and just bringing a bit of the fun back, really.
Yeah, I've taken a lot of flack for this, but I agree with you, and you're absolutely spot on. And if it becomes all about making money, I think you just, it's time to get off the wheel, I think. I mean, you know, when after my mentor, after Alan had sort of put me right and changed the way I did things, I realized we had become a very mercenary business. And you think, well, isn't every business a mercenary business? And yeah, you know, we need to earn money to survive. I completely get that. We've got bills to pay, we've got mortgages, we've got families. I completely understand all that, but it's how you go about doing that, isn't it? It's your attitude to it. And it's that big difference between what I said before, sitting in front of people thinking, now what can I say or do for you to give me your contract? And thinking, here's a nice person, here's someone who shares my values, here's someone I think we've got the skills to actually help. Why don't we set out to look at that person as a fellow human being with issues and fears and angst, the same as ours? And if you approach it that way and think, how can I help this person and how can I help their business? And you set out to demonstrate that you can make a difference and that you can add value, the money has an uncanny way of following. And it's not a big shift, but it is a really important shift.
I agree with that. And actually, for us as a business, we have made a conscious decision that we don't employ any salespeople. So that's never been attacked for us. It doesn't work for our business.
No.
We have account managers, we have people who are passionate about what they do, and we demonstrate that hopefully through our own communications. So yeah, I think it doesn't lend itself. I think for us, somebody who was out looking to sell to people rather than having as you've mentioned, sort of best interests at heart, how can we help them? And if we can't help them, we would always rather walk away from a potential client than have a relationship that's not going to last.
You know, the two big things there are, isn't that just another word for authenticity? You know, and isn't that just majoring on empathy? And that's what it is. It is, you take the whole thing down to a human level. And I love that concept that you mentioned earlier on about, let's not worry about what we're doing. How is this client feeling? How are we feeling about each other? You know, if you look at it at that emotional level, it just makes much more sense, and it just gives it a lot more meaning, and people get it. I mean, I have said this before, and I mentioned earlier on about winning bagfuls of awards. Yeah, great, all very good. Doesn't mean to say we were really good all the time. You know, sometimes we were very good. If I'm being really honest, we were very good. Sometimes we were very, very bad for loads of different reasons. But there was poor service, there was lack of control, probably all down to me. Doesn't matter. But sometimes we were really bad. And you think to yourself, anywhere else, that client would have walked, you know, because it doesn't happen once or twice. You know, it happens. Sometimes it's innocent. Well, it's always innocent, but you know, it's enough for you as a client to think, I don't think I want to be with this agency anymore. And yet we never lost a client that way, because looking back on it now, I really genuinely and firmly believe that the clients realized that we did actually care an awful lot. And that created a relationship that went far away from just a commercial understanding. There was a real human relationship there, and they knew how much we cared, and they knew how much we felt about it. So it's about being open and honest and saying we've really cocked up here. But I know that had we done that in a different circumstance, we'd have lost clients. And that's why, I mean, I do, you know, old bloke alert, I'm sure, but I genuinely believe that running a business on those lines is the most sustainable way. And I've always said that of keeping a business going. And interestingly, if I look at the businesses I'm working with now, and I look at businesses that I keep an eye on, you know, yours included, it is the authentic ones, the ones who really do care. And who have those relationships that are doing really well and surviving. But interestingly, the ones that aren't doing very well are those that have been grasping for short-term commercial gain and desperate for survival, and whose management styles have been like command and control, you know, which is the biggest killer for me. Yeah, you know, that's just not going to work, is it? You need a bit of humility. And so, yeah, that's absolutely.
I think for us, one thing, and it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on this, but we don't have, you know, one formula that works for all clients either. So we recognize that clients are individuals. Some of them like to speak to you every week. Some of them prefer to communicate by email. Some of them are very detailed people and they want the full report, whereas some of them are just think, don't waste my time sending this over. They're just very top level. And I think that's something that you learn in business as well, that actually don't be too hard on yourselves in terms of your processes. You've got to go with what's right. You're dealing with individual people, not just another company.
You're not inflicting your standards, beliefs, preferences on other people. You're asking what their preferences are, how they want to be spoken to. Do they want an email? Do they want a phone call? I mean, I was pretty big on making sure that we phoned our client personally every week. You know, I mean, we just become too reliant, you know, and there's that thing about, just before you push that send button, just read again what you've just written. You know, is there a different way of saying that? Is there a better word to use? Trying to put yourself in the recipient's chair trying to say, how's this word, how's this phrase going to make that client feel? And these are the things, it's those little touch points, those little moments of truth, as I think I've called them in the past. It is a succession of moments of truth like that add up to success and sustainability. It's not just doing a good job. It's not just getting a good result. It's not just getting 5,000 hits on your website in one day. There's more to it than that, and it's that nuancing that makes the difference. And now more than any other time, we really need each other. I know, I'm becoming very. I see in myself sometimes that I'm thinking, I don't know what to do with people if I sit in a room with them. And I've become worried about how I react and interact with other people. It's become a bit alien, I've missed all that. And that's why these little moments have become even more important now than they ever were before.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it does. And I think that'll be the case for a lot of people. I think there certainly will be anxiety around being locked up for however long, and what's the world going to look like. And we've only spoken to people through screens. And for me personally, I'm a people person. I like being around people.
We both are. We both are. And
I miss that.
Yeah, I miss it terribly. I really miss a lot of people terribly. And you feel guilty sometimes. You realize your behaviors have changed. I remember becoming aware during the first lockdown that I wasn't just crossing the road to avoid other human beings. I was actually looking away from them. And you think, how awful is this?
I know. Well, you felt like you leave the house and the virus was going to drop on your head. You didn't. It's terrifying.
It is terrifying. It's terribly terrifying.
So we set Entice Up in 2008, which was right in the height of a recession, which worked for us because we didn't know any different. So it was, people were telling us how tough times were, but we were making connections, winning work, and things could only get better. What would you recommend to people who are considering setting up a business now? Would you say it's a good time to do it, or stay in your job, wait till things get back to normal? What would be your advice there?
A great question. I do quite a lot of work with young enterprise and the venture program. And the venture program is what Chester University of Chester engages with. It's their enterprise program for the kids, for the students. I shouldn't say kids. And I'm quite heavily involved in that, and I do quite a lot of talks, and I mentor some of the young people. And I'm working with two students who have set up their own businesses. One of them is a chef, absolutely passionate chef. And the other one's doing stuff with languages and IT. And the answer to the question is, it depends on your motivation. If you're that passionate about it, and if you feel that strongly about it, do it. Don't do it if you want to make some money. Don't think, oh, there's a niche because of COVID, blah, 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 I'm going to start a business. I don't think that's sustainable. I'm generalizing wildly. But if you're like these two young people, and you've got real passion and you've got real energy, and you can see it all in front of you, you're lying awake at night, absolutely buzzing with excitement. You can't wait to get stuck in. Do it. The thing to do is just take a structured view of it and say, right, what are the challenges? What are my USPs? Have a good brand, usual stuff that you and I have done in the past. Get the basics in place. But do it, because people with that kind of energy and that kind of passion, will find a way of making it work. And there may be a slight variation to what they thought they would be doing, but people like that, they are balls of energy that we need right now in society, and they will find a way of making it work, and they will add massive value to all our lives. So my answer is, as long as you can meet those criteria, do it. Absolutely do it. I mean, you've done your years so far. I mean, I think I've done 2 or 3 what do you call them? I've lost the word. When the economy's in a really poor
recessions.
So I've done 2 or 3 recessions. We had a great time. We did very well during recessions, because there was that built-in consistency and sustainability. That's what I think. I mean, feel
Yeah.
free to argue, but looking back, and you can see maybe how the thing has managed to continue for as long as it has.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think when you start a business, I don't know how you feel from the mentor coaching side. I think you almost need a period of time to just find yourself, survive, get out there, try anything before it kind of, for us, we wouldn't have been open to having a mentor for the first few years because
Yep.
we're just having too much fun and just out doing what we absolutely love, and every day was exciting. And then I think once you start to get a team and you want to get to the next level, I think that's when you start being open to, okay, maybe now's the time that we start to speak to somebody who's experienced. We're not the first people to do this, and if we can gain some help by engaging with somebody else, then why wouldn't we?
No, it's just to keep it. You're absolutely right, and it's about keeping it fresh. But you had each other, and in the early years, I think that will have helped an awful lot. I didn't.
Yes.
Yes, I had my dad. I get that, but actually, on the ground there and then, it can be quite a lonely place,
I
can't
can
it?
imagine that, and I do often wonder that. I don't think I would have had the strength or resilience to do it on my. I know I've never known any different, but it was nice that we've got each other and we got all day together to talk through problems, and then you get home and I wasn't bringing those issues, not talking about it at home really. Yeah, I can imagine that being on your own, you do have to maybe sooner find support in others that you can talk to without killing your marriage.
Well, yeah, well, but I never did that. You see, I would suffer. I
That's
would
good.
suffer in silence. No, of course not. But then, I know now how I should have behaved. But you see, I was the hero. I was the martyr. I was the person who was in work 6-7 days a week till 1 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. That's what I did, and I'm not saying aren't I fantastic. It's aren't I stupid, and I wish I'd had someone to take me to one side. But you think that's what you have to
That's what you
do.
do.
That
That's
is,
the process.
you've got kids at home. So you are that martyr, and you are that person who's doing it for completely the wrong reasons, and you lose insight and objectivity. And that's why it scares me beyond belief what would have happened to me had I not had Alan come into my life, and how many other people are out there thinking, business owners, people in business, employees, human beings, thinking that everything's all right, and just going there with blinkers on, not on purpose, but not realizing, thinking their world is okay, knowing at some level that really perhaps it isn't, but never have the opportunity that I had and that you have now for someone to come in and say, here you go, here's what it looks like from my perspective, are you happy with this, etc., etc. And that was a
take that
scary
pressure
thing.
off. Yeah, because you do take the pressures of the world and you don't want to burden people with it, and you do think that you're the only person, and I think social media as well, something over recent years, you look at successes of other businesses and you think, why are they doing amazingly well? How come, they've, like, as coming back to what you've said, they've just won all these awards, and there is that whole compare thing. And then I think sometimes it can shock you sometimes when you see how that business no longer exists anymore. Sometimes
right.
it's a bit of a front.
But I would say to young people, live a life true to yourself and not the life that others expect of you. That's it. Do your own thing. Don't worry about what other people think. Just have the courage to go out there and
do it your own way.
Absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely right.
Oh, Hems, it's been a pleasure. That's been really interesting, really insightful. I feel like we've covered loads.
Aren't you kind?
What does the rest of the day entail? Have you had any fresh air today? Have you left the house?
I've been for a long walk with my dog.
Oh, well done.
Who's sitting in his bed next to mine, next to my chair, my desk. So I've done that. I've written a couple of letters. I am going to probably do a little bit of painting. I try and do about an hour's painting every day. It's absolute rubbish. It is just so bad.
I bet it's not.
Oh, I truly is.
I bet it's very therapeutic.
It is therapeutic. I think it's just a good thing to do. And I've written a couple of letters to people. And,
well done.
Yeah, everything is fine. I do like writing letters with a proper fountain pen. Old
Oh,
blood
you're a
work.
true gentleman, and I know that Libby and I have definitely taken lots of golden nuggets of information
Well,
from you
that's
over the years.
kind
So,
of you to say. Plenty more around. Just cool.
no, thank you very much. I will let you carry on with your afternoon.
You too. And let's have another chat. Let's not just leave this for another 12 months. Give us a shout sometime. Always around
Yeah.
anyway, but I will
Once we're
continue.
allowed, you'll
Yeah,
be top of my list for a coffee.
done. It's a deal. Thanks very much.
Perfect.